welcome back to the So There I Was podcast. I'm Travis Womack, your host. Today's guest is Jos. I'm sorry, I didn't clarify that.
Jos. It's Jos.
Jos Willard.
It's Jos.
He's a former Army 11 Bravo infantryman, and just gonna have a good time today, just kind of chatting. So, Josh, just give us a little brief summary of your career, and then I'm sure there's some fun stories to tell.
Yeah, my Army career was one of those weird ones. I grew up in Alaska, so I had had too many snowy winters. So I'm like, hey, I'm going to join the Army and get out of here. So of course they immediately put me on delayed entry, so I didn't leave until like just after December. So I got half the winter anyway. But like most, how much of the story do you want? I was originally going to be an airborne Cav Scout. I talked to my recruiter. I was going to go spend 2 years jumping out of airplanes, calling in big guns to blow up tanks, and then I was going to go go to school, let the Army pay for law school, go back and be a JAG Corps, do that, right? Well, weirdly enough, my recruiter was cool, but when I got to MEPS and was going to, took all my tests and everything, and I had scored like a 99 on the ASVAB. So of course the senior recruiter's like, we can't waste this guy on the infantry, or sorry, we can't waste this guy on combat arms. So he comes in and sits down next to me. He's like, I got bad news for you, soldier. I'm like, oh, what's that, Sergeant? He's like, we don't have airborne Cav Scouts. You can't be an airborne Cav Scout. I'm like, what? It's like, yeah, Cav Scouts don't jump out of airplanes anymore. This was 93 or 94. And I was like, well, that sucks. How come my recruiter, who I've been talking to for months getting this set up, didn't tell me that? He's like, well, trust me, I was a Cav Scout. I know this thing. And I'm looking at him. He's got his jump wings. I'm like, you have jump wings? He's like, yeah, I was in like the last unit and they just disbanded us. And I'm like, okay, well, what can I do? He's like, well, you could do communications. You could do, like, he started listing off all these things, just sounded really boring.
Yeah.
It's like the whole purpose of being airborne was I wanted to have fun for a couple of years, jump out of planes, and then go do the smart thing, go to law school. And he goes, he realized going around and around that he wasn't going to get me and that he'd screwed up.
Yeah.
So he was like, well, we can get you a Ranger contract, but it's 3 years, not 2. I was like, all right, fine. So I signed up Ranger Infantry. And this guy, like, I don't know. So he gets me all signed up and everything. Now, if he'd ever said military intelligence, I was a dumb kid. So if he'd said military intelligence, I'd have gone for it.
Yeah, sounds cool.
But he didn't. He just, yeah, exactly. And I read Tom Clancy and stuff as a kid, so I was like into that.
Oh yeah,
right. But for some reason, I didn't want to be a cook. I didn't want to be a wire monkey. I didn't want to do anything other than go have fun for a couple of years. So he signs me up. Forgot to mention that there might have been a signing bonus. Weird that recruiters would forget this. But that turned out to be good later. So signs me up, says, congratulations, welcome to the Army, calls my recruiting sergeant, hands me the phone. Recruiter's like, hey, man, you ready to go? You can go be an airborne Cav Scout? And I was like, yeah, no, about that. He said that we don't have Cav Scouts anymore. So I'm on a 3-year Ranger contract. He's like, really? Yeah. Cool. Can I talk to him? Sure. Handed him the phone from across the desk. You mother! Just tears it.
What are you doing?
Exactly. And the guy's just like, hang on. Willard, why don't you go hang out in the hallway for a little bit? It's like, all right, cool. So that's the beginning of my military career.
It's always a good start.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So wind up going to Benning, do my basic there, mess up my knees in basic training, but didn't tell anybody about it other than the doctor, and went to jump school because why wouldn't you? I wanted to jump out of airplanes. So jumped out of airplanes, got my badge, and then went to there were I don't know, 8 or 10 of us that were all going from jump school straight to RIP, because back then it was RIP, not RASP.
Not RASP,
right? We weren't politically correct back then. So we're all sitting out there in the sun. Like they've kicked us out of jump school. We're sitting there with our gear in the sun, no DFAC cards, no water, nothing. My guess is this was done on purpose. We sit there all day. Nobody from Ranger Bat shows up at all. Like, I don't know how many hours we were out there, but it was all day. Eventually, one of one of the jump school cadre comes by. Is like, "What are you guys doing? Waiting for Rangers? Can't go anywhere." He's like, "Oh, have you eaten anything? No, I'll get you some." So he comes back out, and just amazingly, he happened to have the exact number of MREs just sitting around as there were us young kids sitting out in the sun. So he tosses us all an MRE. No water, MREs.
Right. Oh yeah.
So we're like, okay, cool. And it's Georgia. It's April. So we're not dead sun, but it's like April, May, warm enough.
It's about to
And
get there.
eventually, yeah, starting to get there. So eventually up shows this old guy, old E6, like cut out of shoe leather, like your stereotypical,
What you would hope it'd be.
right? And then this walking wall of an E5. Like the dude was huge. And like, all right, you fall in. We're like, okay, we're falling. I forgot to mention, I had spent the night before getting emergency dental surgery done on it too. So I had no sleep. I'm
Oh,
angry. My mouth
you're
hurt.
doubling down on the tired.
Oh yeah, I was just ready to go. I was pissed. But by this time, I was just done with everything. And they go, falling. So he falling. He's like, all right. And then the old guy, the older, the E6, he's like, all right, who here doesn't care if they're a ranger or not? By this time, half of us raised our hands. He's like, all right, fall in over there. So we fall in over there. He's like, you guys, you ready to go? And it's like the four guys that were all cool and ready to go. It's like, all right, get in the truck. Or it wasn't get in the truck, it was throw your stuff in the truck.
Walk
And
back.
then you're going to follow Sergeant Wall over here too, wherever. Okay. So then he starts on one end and I'm on the end. He starts on the opposite end of the line of the 4 or 5 of us that didn't care. He gets right up in their face, like, why don't you want to be a ranger, son? And he got list of the lamest excuses, right? And like, I don't know. And he made one guy cry or whatever. And when he gets to me, and I'm just like, you know what? He gets to the guy before me and says, why don't you want to be a ranger, son? He's like, I just don't think the ranger life is a life for me, Sergeant. He goes, what do you mean? Now, at this point, prior to that, I'd been like, you know what? I'm just grumpy. When he gets to me, and he let one guy go back. He's like, when he gets to me, I'll tell him I screwed up. I'll go back and I'll fall in. But he gets to the guy before me. I don't think the ranger life's a life for me. He's like, what do you mean? And just like his eyes go weird. And he
Yeah.
starts frothing at the mouth. And he's like, the ranger life is the only life, soldier. What else can you do? PT all day, every day. Like just like going on and red in the face. And I'm just like, I do not ever want to be like that man. Ever. Like no. And so he gets the other guy's just like, and this guy's crying. And he gets to me, he's like, why don't you want to be a ranger? Like, I didn't say I didn't want to be a ranger, Sergeant. You asked who doesn't care if they're a ranger or not. And I figured if I don't care if I'm a ranger or not, I probably shouldn't be a ranger. And he stopped and he went, I
Damn
can't
it.
argue.
It's a brilliant answer.
Yeah. So he's like, you guys go back, talk to jump school, and they'll get you reassigned somewhere. The rest of you, we're going for a ride. So they took off. Right. So that's how I wound up not going to ranger school. So, of course, as a single soldier with who had turned down a ranger assignment, I was now needs of the army. So weirdly, Korea. So I got sent to Korea. Got to go home to Alaska on leave for a little bit when it was warm, which was nice, and then showed up in Korea. And Korea was great. I was, 11 Bravo, airborne qualified. Nobody jumps out of airplanes in Korea, but they sent me to, second ID, Camp Casey.
Oh yeah.
503rd, First Rock. And I started in Charlie Company, and the first thing they did is they're like, oh, looking through my folder, you're Charlie Deuce qualified. I'm like, cool. What does that mean? They were like, well, you're qualified with the Dragon Gun. I'm like, I don't even know what the Dragon Gun is, but sure, okay. He's like, well, we're doing CIB training, we're doing EIB training.
Yep.
I want you to get out there and man the Dragon station so you can evaluate people. I'm like, evaluate me? What? I don't even. This is literally my first day after being processed through, right? And so they send me out on the hill, and I walk up, and there's a specialist up there, and he's like, "Hey, private." I'm like, "Hey, specialist." He's like, "What are you here for?" I'm like, "Platoon sergeant said I'm Charlie Deuce qualified, so I'm supposed to come out here and evaluate the Dragon gun." I'm like, "Is that a dragon?" He's like, "Yeah." Turned out the dragon, the qualification for dragon was done on one of the days that I was at the hospital in basic, and they had just randomly selected like 3 guys to go, yep, you're going to be dragon qualified. So I was dragon qualified without ever having been on the range or seen the weapon. So I get out there. Sorry, this is a really long, windy version
Oh,
of
it's
my
great.
career.
I love it. It's great.
Yeah. So, and this should be just instilling all kinds of confidence in folks. But anyway, get out there. The guy, the specialist there, he introduces me to the dragon. Says, "This is what you're looking for. This is how it works." Like, okay, it's pretty simple. Like most things in the army, follow the 5 steps. You're good.
Yeah.
So I spend the day evaluating guys that don't know me, that all outrank me on using the dragon, which I'd never seen before that day. Pass, fail, pass, fail. Great. It was great. I was the dragon gunner uh, for Charlie Company. I don't remember, second platoon, and I was the 60 AG. Like, all right, cool. So I got to carry a heavy backpacker with bad
Oh yeah.
news because those had never gotten better. And weirdly, jumping out of airplanes didn't seem to improve the situation. So,
Yeah.
um, so I was there for a while, and then battalion tasked out and said, "Hey, we need some drivers." And they said, "We're going to need someone to be the chaplain's assistant." And my knees were messed up. I'd been on profile a couple of times, and first sergeant of Charlie Company was like, he basically couldn't wait to get rid of me. He's like, "You know what, Joss, you can't." Well, he was okay. He didn't hate me. We'd done a 25-mile road march in a monsoon. Our company had come in faster than anybody else. We were the only company that nobody dropped out. It was pretty cool. I'd come off a profile that day. Anyway, so he kind of warmed up to me, but then he was like, "Well, your knees are hurt. You're going back on profile. We'll send you to rest your knees, and you can drive for the chaplain." I was like, "Great." Then a couple of days later, he comes back and says, "Willard, I'm sorry, you can't. I've changed my mind. You're not going to drive for the chaplain." I'm like, "Man." He's like, "I need you too much. I need trigger squeezers, bullet launchers. You're staying with me." I'm like, "Okay, fine." And then a day later, battalion said, "No, we need more drivers. We need someone to drive for the battalion sergeant major." So first sergeant was like, "All right, Willard, turns out you're going to go drive for the sergeant." Like, okay, great. So I go over to headquarters company to report. I'm standing at parade rest outside the sergeant major's office, and up walks the chaplain. And Chaplain Pyo was Korean, and every bit of his O3, right?
Mhm.
He was, "I am an officer, darn it, and you will respect me." Cool. So he comes up to me on the hallway. He's like, PFC Willard. Like, "Chaplain, Captain, Captain Joe." He's like, "I'm looking forward to having you come and be my new assistant." I'm like, "I'm afraid that's probably not happening, sir." He's like, "What?" He said, "Well, I've been told this, that, and now apparently I'm driving for the sergeant major." And just thunderclouds on his face. And this will tell you everything you need to know about Chaplain Pyo. Did you know that an O3 outranks an E8? Actually, is it an E9? It's an E9, right? Sergeant
All
Major's E9, right?
all the E's. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I know, but
Yeah.
Chaplain Pyo absolutely knew this.
Oh, it's always fun.
Oh, yeah. So he just opened the sergeant major's door and walked in and put the sergeant major at attention and went up one side and down the other as to why it was he was stealing Chaplain Pyo's prized new chaplain's assistant and driver and basically just crushing my career right there. And the sergeant major's like, "Sorry, sir. Um, there's been a mistake, sir. I will fix it, sir. No worries, sir. Private first class Willard belongs to you, sir." And I was like, "Oh, crap. This is not good." So then the chaplain says, "Thank you." He doesn't even say thank you. He says basically something along the lines of, "That's right. That's how it should be." Walks out, "Willard, with me." I'm like, "Oh, crap."
Mhm.
So I'm following him. What does he do? He heads straight over to Bravo Company barracks, where they're at end of the day formation. And right there in front of his entire formation, because the sergeant major did at some point say that first sergeant, I forget his name now, that Bravo Company's first sergeant had changed the assignment or had offered me up, whatever. So he
Right.
goes in right in front of the entire company, goes up one side and down the other side of first sergeant. And I'm standing there beside them,
It's
just
over. Today's
watching.
the day.
Yep. Like, I'm gonna die. I'm done. And so first sergeant did as a good first sergeant does. Yes, sir. No, sir. Yes, sir. No, sir. Thank you, sir. Salutes. Dismissed. Dismisses the company. Looks at me and he goes, "Get the hell out of my barracks." It's like you're gonna
Headquarters.
go play headquarters company. You belong to headquarters company. Get your shit out of my barracks now. It's like I didn't. I'm sorry.
I
Roger.
didn't do anything.
Yeah. Go upstairs, grab my stuff, head on over, walk into the headquarters company's office, and I'm like, they're like, "Who the hell are you?" I'm like, "Private First Class Willard." "Aren't you in Bravo Company?" Or, yeah, it was Bravo Company. Why did you say Charlie? Anyway, "Aren't you in Bravo Company?" "Well, I was, but First Sergeant said get the hell out because I'm driving for the Japa." And First Sergeant Delaney, he was a smart man that knew how to play politics. He's like, "Ooh, free soldier for me. Come on in." So
Oh yeah.
I wound up getting assigned as the chaplain's assistant. I got myself a room. I was headquarters company. All right. And so was a chaplain's assistant for a while. We can get into the stories there because there's a lot of fun stuff that happened there.
Oh, I bet.
Eventually, we got a chaplain's assistant that replaced me, and after we talked him out of committing suicide, the next chaplain's assistant that came in and replaced me a couple months later, I actually was replaced, but couldn't go back to Bravo Company anymore. So I got assigned to S1 and was a driver there and did a bunch of things, learned a bunch of weird, wacky stuff, and then eventually became the first sergeant's. Became the training NCO and first sergeant's dirty jobs guy. Get into that later.
You always gotta have at least two of those.
Oh yeah. So I was the guy that when he wanted to piss off, he was in a regular pissing contest with the master sergeant who ran S3.
Oh yeah, that's always fun.
Oh yeah. So S3 would put out a tasking to headquarters company to provide X number of people for whatever tasking.
And you
First
pull all the
Sergeant Delaney would
soldiers.
say, yeah. So he'd say, PFC Willard, I need you to uh, call up S3 and tell them that we have a tasking from battalion for 8 soldiers and they need to provide 5 of them to do XYZ thing.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'd call them up. S3, Master Sergeant Edwards. Hey, Master Sergeant, First Sergeant wants me to tell you that you guys have been tasked to provide 5 soldiers for this, for whatever duty was. And I would always get, you don't task me. I'm in battalion. We task you. And I'm like, I'm just doing what I'm told.
Yeah. I was
So
a HAC commander. And
yeah.
so I know that fight so well. It's like you can task the company to provide blah soldiers.
But we got to pull them from somewhere.
You're S3. You and S4 are the only ones that have soldiers. Like they'd always come back. No, you have a whole platoon over there. Is the drill team and the tomb guards. And I'm like, the drill team's in Chicago. Like, like they're not here, and the tomb guards are working or they're off. Like it's day on, day off for them. So
yeah,
I don't pull them on their off days.
On their days off. No,
I get earfuls beyond earfuls if I do that. So it's like, so your driver and your driver and your driver and your driver are now tasked to go do XYZ, and they get so mad. They're like, rah! I'm like, task the companies, man. They have hundreds of people.
Yeah, they have people.
I have 24 soldiers. It's like, so if you task for 25, guess who's the 25th? You.
Yep.
So
there you go.
Totally.
So yeah, we got to do all those. And of course, so I extended in Korea because I actually liked it. So I was there for 18 months. But the mistake in that was that First Sergeant Delaney rotated out, and the next senior E8 in the company,
the master sergeant,
so he was now the new first sergeant, and he did not like me.
Oh, man.
So all of a sudden, that's actually where I wound up in S1. He kicked me out of his office. He's like, "You're not working for me." He wanted to kick me back to one of the line companies, but by then my knees were so messed up that they wouldn't take me. So he's like, S1, banished to the mailroom. So okay. So eventually I wound up got out of Korea, got sent, of all places, Fort Bragg, 82nd Airborne. I was like, that's cool. But I walked in and they go, Private First Class Willard. See, you're on a no jumping profile. Like, yep. And it's permanent. It's like, yep. Why the hell are you in the 82nd? I'm like, I don't know. Okay, well, we'll assign you here temporarily, and we got some stuff for you to do. And they gave me some stuff to do, but basically I was an admin for a while. And then they sent me off to Fort Campbell, 101st. And the funny thing was, by the time I had finished there, I was only there like 2.5, 3 months. And by the time I had finished doing my work there, I was so good at what I did. And my headquarters company, or my company commander, had been detailed from infantry. So he loved me because I was former infantry, or I was infantry, and could actually still run even with bad knees. I just couldn't jump out of airplanes. And he tried to keep me. And they were like, oh, we already cut the orders. Sorry, too bad. But off you go. So I went to 101st. Did a bunch of fun stuff there. I was assigned to a rifle company there. Very quickly, they went, you have bad knees. Made me the training NCO because I had the history with that. And I was there for a little over a year. Did some fun stuff. Tried to reenlist for what's it? PR. Because basically I found if you do the Army PR course, you wind up coming out with a phone book the size, or sorry, with a resume the size of a Chicago phone book. You can get
Oh
into
yeah.
broadcasting, all that kind of fun stuff. I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
I'll do that. Public affairs,
Reporter.
PA, not PR.
Yeah. PA. Yeah.
Yeah.
PA. PA.
So I was
PA.
gonna,
Yeah.
yeah. So I was like, and they probably would have sent me back to Korea and everything. So I was also, I was like, hey, cool, I'm cool with that. And the reenlistment NCO, hardcore E7, been there since before Christ was a corporal, and said, you got bad knees. I was like, how's that, Sergeant? He's like, that means you can't be infantry. I was like, well, I can. I'm just not going to be good at it, I guess. And he's like,
Yeah.
you can't be infantry, son. You can't be in the Army because everybody in the Army, when it comes down to it, is infantry. So I'm not going to let you reenlist. I was like, what? All right. So I got medically discharged from the United States Army 2 weeks before my ETS did in 1998. So that was my Army career.
Wow.
Long
How, how,
and
how many years were you in total? Is it 3?
little over 3.5.
Over 3. It's a training plus. So
Yeah.
that's crazy.
Yeah.
So I graduated in 98, not to make you feel old, but you're not too much older than me. So
It's all good.
that's
I don't
crazy.
feel I like, yeah, it's nuts. Army doctors were fun. There was a
Oh, yeah,
cycle that I would go
fun.
through. And every time I got assigned to a new unit, I would get a new Army doctor to go to.
Yeah.
And you go show up because we're on a temporary profile. So profile expires. They make you work for a day, just run you,
Oh
sweat
yeah.
you because how dare you be. I'm like, hey, that's fine, whatever. I mean, I got it. I understood it. It didn't bother me.
Yeah.
And then I'd go to the doctor. And the first time you go see the doctor, like, okay, here's your, you got pain behind your knees. Here's your Motrin,
Yeah.
right? And it was always the next step up. I was like, okay, fine. Then you take the Motrin for a week, you go back. Yep, knees still hurt. Okay, so now you get Motrin and the green muscle relaxants. I never knew what kind of muscle relaxants they were, but they're always the green capsules, right? So here's your Motrin, here's your muscle.
Naproxen, probably.
Probably, yeah, it could be. So I got them, and then I'd go, and then you'd go back the third time after you'd gone through all of those and be like, your knees still hurt? All right, fine, we're going to write your profile. All right, well, okay. So I was just used to the cycle until the point where they finally sent me in when I was in, where was I? I don't remember if it was Bragg or if it was Campbell, that they actually sent me to the hospital to inject nuclear radioactive material into me
Yeah.
to see what was wrong with my legs. And the guy comes out looking like Hurt Locker. Right? Just full, yeah, full suit. It's like, I'm gonna inject this radioactive stuff, but it's okay. Right. And you gotta wait 2 hours for it to get through your system. Yeah, you're good. You're good. But by the way, if you need to piss, you can only use this one lead line toilet.
Yeah. It's gonna sting a little bit at first. And then it goes numb.
Yeah. So it's like, all right, cool. I'm sure this is fine.
You talk about nuclear stuff. I have to jump in. I'll tell you a funny story about nuclear stuff. Is I had a heart murmur that was weird, and this is like my 17th year in the Army. Mm-hmm. And so I go to my doctor and I'm like, it's just weird, and he's like, nah, I'm gonna have you do this nuclear stress test. I'm like, great, sure, awesome. That just sounds awesome. Let's combine nuclear and stress at the same time. What could go wrong? So I go to Fort Belvoir and the hospital there, and they give me an IV and they inject this stuff in there, and I'm running on walking on a treadmill. It's
Mhm.
inclining faster and faster, and I was in pretty good shape, I thought,
Right.
and all this stuff, and then it was a Thursday, and
Mhm.
the next weekend was going to be I had to work Friday, and then it was a 3-day weekend, yeah, for some holiday or something, who knows, and they gave me this little piece of paper. I mean, it was like it might as well have been a post-it note, but it had a little like stamp on it that said I had
Yep.
this nuclear stress test done. I was like, make sure you keep this with you so you don't get in trouble. I'm like, okay. So the next day I get up, get on the train, I go to work, I get off the train, the metro right there at the Pentagon, and I get off of it and I go up the steps, and I I I didn't
All
get
the
within
alarms go off.
50 feet of that building, and I had like 6 cops on me. They're like, sir, have you had any kind of medical procedures recently? I'm like, I had this. They told me to keep this. Like, okay, cool, because you're glowing. I was like, it's like, well, at least we have some kind of stuff here that looks pretty good. It's like, that's fun. I was like, I would love to
Nice.
have seen like the screen of like me glowing, and everyone else is like just normal black and white. It's like, I should
Yeah.
probably chase that guy. I'm like, what's in me? How much did y'all give me? So,
Yeah. What was that about?
yeah.
What was that
Is my heart okay after this? It's,
for? Yeah. Yeah.
it's,
If it wasn't messed up before, it will be now.
yeah.
Don't worry about
We
security.
burn some holes in it. See what happens. Like a
How
sponge.
badly do you want that medical retirement?
No kidding. Well, hey, you put it in your notes to me. Um,
Yeah.
I would love to kind of jump subjects here a little bit.
Sure.
Kind of the spirit of this podcast is hearing people's stories, and they're always fun, and experiences are different because the Army 94 to 98 compared to the Army when I was in from '03 to 3 months ago is vastly different. You're talking about
Yeah.
orders and being at Bragg for 2 months and going to Campbell, and I'm like, man, you can't do that right now. That's just not how it you know doesn't work that way. And plus, we're at manning shortage and all that kind of stuff. Um, but definitely touch on the kind of some of your experiences as the chaplain assistant, dealing with
Yeah.
soldiers and suicide, and also you put a comment that just kind of jumps off the page at me is kind of your personal story of dealing with, like, quote unquote, am I a real veteran?
Yeah.
And I would love to kind of have you expand on that a little bit more, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, we'll start with the second one and circle around to the first
Yeah.
one just because it works better. So I've always dealt with, I was the guy who, I was part of the generation that snuck through between deserts, right? Between
Oh yeah.
storm and sword, right? Um, and so, like, I was in high school when Desert Storm happened, right? First one,
Right.
Schwarzkopf's out there
Oh
leading,
yeah. The best
SEALs are
video
storming
of
the beach and
the best
CNN's
video
already
of
there.
the luckiest car in the entire country going across that
Yeah,
bridge, and then the
yeah,
bridge is gone.
yeah,
That's the best video I've ever seen in my
yeah.
life. So yeah.
Yeah, so we got to watch all that in high school, and that was, war on television kind of thing,
Oh yeah.
and some patriotism there, and then it was over. And then I got in, 94 and 94 to 98. And, technically I served in a war zone because Korea is technically still a war zone, but it's
Yep.
like, okay. And there's some classified stuff that happened that I can't tell you about that,
That'd be
okay,
fun.
maybe made it a bit more real. But really, I didn't like officially, I never had a bad guy point a gun at me and pull a trigger.
Yeah.
And so whenever, Remembrance Day, Veterans Day, um, Memorial Day, all those days come around, people are telling me thank you for your service. And I'm always like, sorry, I'm just dealing with a sore throat.
You're good.
I'm it's always a weird feeling, right? And I'm been told by many people who have, like me, didn't actually ever deploy to a war zone. Maybe there was a conflict going on, but they didn't deploy to the conflict zone, or they were in between conflicts or whatever. That almost all of us feel a little weird with that.
Oh yeah.
Being a veteran, and it's like because there are guys who saw some serious shit. I had a roommate when I got out of the army who had been in Desert Storm, and he used to tell me stories of how stuff went on. Like, and he was a good friend of mine for many years as I lived in Tennessee. And hearing the stuff that he went through and that kind of stuff, and hearing other soldier stories and things, it's like I've come to a point now. I'm old enough. I'm comfortable enough with that. I can say, yeah, I was a veteran. Being a veteran involves doing a bunch of crap that sucks,
Yeah.
so that a whole bunch of other people don't have to. Even if that stuff that sucks is just being out in the mud, in the cold, in Korea, with guys watching you through binoculars while you have lieutenants saying, "You're going to salute me, damn it." Sniper check, sir. Right. And then they get pissed
Yeah.
when you say that for some strange reason. It's like, hey, sir, you see that little thing over there with the guy moving around in it? There's two of them. You see the glint of the sun off of one of them? Yeah, that's the sunglass. That's the binoculars he's looking through. So that when I salute you, he marks you as a target for the sniper
Yeah.
standing right next to him. So are you sure you want me to salute you? Belay that order. You'll be fine. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Right. So good stuff. But that stuff in many ways sucked. It was also some of the most fun things that I've done in my life, and some of the things that I'm proudest of. But I did that so that I don't know how many hundred or thousands other Americans and other people around the world didn't have to. And fortunately for me, balloon never went up while I was there. Cool. So I can say I wrote the check, right? I was
Yeah.
if I'd had the orders, and literally our orders were, if the balloon goes up, you move to this area overlooking this bridge. You will call for fire on this bridge
Oh yeah.
until you're no longer able to call for fire. It's like, okay. And somebody else asked, hey, what's the exfil plan, sir? And I was like, oh, there is no exfil plan. You will call for fire until you're no longer capable of calling for fire. Cool. That's us.
Yeah.
Right. All right. If that happened, I signed up for it. I was willing to do it. So I think I've gotten to the point where I can say I'm comfortable with that. I don't get as uncomfortable anymore when people say thank you for your service, or saying, hey, I'm a veteran. But there was for a long time that little naggy voice in there going, but were you a real veteran? You wore the uniform, but what did you really do? You weren't even really infantry. You were infantry. You trained to jump out of planes. You didn't jump out of planes much after jump school because you messed up your knees. You were on profile half of your army career, like all that stuff,
Oh yeah.
just right.
That negative
And
voice.
yeah, absolutely. And so and I know there's a ton of guys out there and gals and that when they're in a room with guys talking about when they were deployed, they just get real quiet. Right? And they nod and they laugh, and they laugh at the right parts of the jokes, and be like, hey man, that must have sucked, or that was cool. But you don't hear them telling their own stories
Yeah.
because they feel like I wasn't there. I didn't contribute to that part. And that can be hard on folks. And I have a background that includes counseling, and I was never a psychologist or a therapist. I don't ever want to be, but counseling and coaching and dealing with the mental aspects of things.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was a kid in school, like high school, junior high, I would get phone calls at 3 o'clock in the morning from people I didn't know saying, hey, so and so, who's a friend of so and so, who's a friend of so and so. Like they go 3, 4 names deep before I'd start recognizing people from like two towns over. Say
Yeah.
they say you're a good guy to talk to. Be like, it's 3 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday.
It's
Hang
never a
on.
good time to
Right?
talk.
Yeah. It's like, hang on. So, I'd go and I got enough of these calls that my parents installed a phone in my bedroom, which like was never going to happen. This was back, early 90s. You had to
Oh
call
yeah.
buildings stuff, right?
Oh yeah. You gotta run
My
wire.
parents were tired of getting woken up, so they gave me a phone. Um, so I learned how to ask questions, right? Just be like, okay, tell me what you think. What's going on? Tell me about it. Is this what you want? And sort of give a little bit of advice. So I learned that skill set as a kid, just kind of by being around. And then we had some things. I had a friend who killed himself when I was very young, so I get to be on the therapist couch. And then my mom had MS when I was a year older than that. Or actually, no, it was mom first. Anyway, 13, 14, yeah. So mom was first. She went from one of the top teachers in the state and well known, doing a whole bunch of things, was basically the rock of our family, to my left foot tingles a little bit, to in a wheelchair, no short-term memory, radical personality shift in
Wow.
less than 18 months. It was the fastest progressing case of MS they had ever seen to that point.
Wow.
So again, I got to talk to therapists. So I got to experience being on the couch for a number of
Right.
reasons, and I got to kind of look at being the guy talking to the guy on the couch. So when I wound up as a chaplain's assistant, I didn't know that chaplain's assistants got like 8 months of training in counseling, right? So everybody assumed, because we're all infantry grunts, knock on head, that the chaplain's assistant, his job was to file paperwork, drive the chaplain around, set up the little portable altar, and break it down. Right. And that was basically it. And yes, all of those things are part of the job, but also what they call pastoral counseling is part of the job.
Yeah.
So while I was there with no training, remember, this is early 90s. The internet was,
Just beginning.
AOL dial up.
Yeah.
So I was not getting help from friend Google. But I had, and we had Chaplain Pio was the chaplain. And he was a very fire and brimstone kind of guy, his denomination. And basically his belief was, if I can't solve the problem with a fire and brimstone sermon at you, you're outside of my doctrine.
Yeah.
And the rules with the chaplains were, if it's outside of your doctrine, you're not, I don't know if it's true now, but back then it was, if it's outside of your denominational doctrine, you're not required to do it. So we actually had books full of last rites and all the different major religions that we were supposed to be issuing to team leaders, officers, and things like that. He wouldn't do it because, well, that's spreading stuff that's outside of my doctrine. I don't believe in it, so I'm not going to do it. So I wound up counseling a whole lot of folks. So the, interfaith prayer group, that was me. AA circle, that was me. And guys who were, because Korea is an unaccompanied tour. You're there for a year, thousands of miles away, which back then, that was really the only one there was. We didn't have combat deployments going on, really. So that was tough for people to be, hey, I'm 4,000 miles away from my daughter's 16th birthday. I'm 4,000 miles away from my son as his first game as the starting quarterback on the high school football team. Right.
Well, communication in general was just, long distance phone calls, 95, 96, 97, where,
Yep. Go get your phone card.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you've got 15 minutes, buddy. Go.
Yeah.
Right. And so all of that. So we were dealing with that all the way up to guys who were feeling suicidal. And I mean, it can feel this. Okay, so this might be what we were just talking about, the not a real veteran thing kicking in. So in Korea, again, no one was shooting at you, but you were being watched all the time.
Yeah.
You had South Koreans in towers around the camps in the forts looking in as well as looking out. When you went off post, you were the only non-Koreans in this town. So everyone was looking to them. And when you went up north to do exercises, the North Koreans were watching you from their towers because they could see you across the DMZ. So you were never not being watched. So there was always pressure. You were always away from family and friends. And, in that loving camaraderie that is a peacetime U.S. military where, people are more, there's some folks are looking out for themselves. Some folks are doing, oh, wow, how deep do we want to go down this hole? Purpose of the Army is to continue. Purpose of the Army is to survive, to continue to exist, right? As an organization is to continue to exist. So during peacetime, the biggest threat to the Army is who? Bureaucrats and politicians. So who rises to the top in peacetime armies? Bureaucrats and politicians, because they're the ones that can fight the biggest enemy. In wartime, look back through the history of war that in the U.S. military. When a conflict kicks off, how many people get killed or relieved that have been longtime soldiers in place because they were good bureaucrats, they were good politicians, but that's not what the Army needs, because right now, what's going to destroy the Army is people shooting bullets and launching big explosive things at them, right? So that the Army kind of goes through those fluctuations. Well, we were at peacetime Army. We had some folks who had been wartime because Desert Storm wasn't that long ago, right? So there's some of them were in there, but they were dealing with the friction that came from being wartime soldiers, seeing the bureaucrats kind of in the ascendancy at that point. And so you had folks who weren't playing the game. The camaraderie was a little different. And when you're a former wartime guy who's served and you're in Korea away from everything that you know and love, surrounded by guys who maybe don't think the same way you do, it gets weird. It gets stressful. And guys, they wouldn't, I don't want to say they'd break, but man, they would bend. It'd be tough. And so you get them coming in and going, man, I don't know why I'm not just eating my rifle. It's like, dude, you like, and they'd seen guys do it in the desert, right? They'd seen guys point their firearms at members of their own team because they were jackass or whatever reason. And they're like, I don't know why I'm not just shooting somebody, this guy, that guy, or me. And I'm like, okay, I got to report that, right? And
you've gone too far.
Yeah, but helping them work through that stuff was very interesting for a 20-year-old kid with none of that training. But I saw and I learned, what the markers were, what you could talk about, what you couldn't talk about, how you could get somebody back, and then what would cause the damage to come back, what would cause them to go from I'm doing okay to nope, not okay. And I see that over and over again with guys who have been in after me, right? Now, when I was there, we had the joy of I was the last, was that the last? My infantry basic training unit did not have stress cards. The units right after us and some of the units around us did. Now, did you know the story of the stress card? Have
Oh
you
yeah,
been
we
in
didn't
a
have
long?
those in 03. I've heard that rumor forever, but I was in 03,
Oh
but
yeah.
we didn't have
So
that.
they existed. They existed in the mid 90s. And they were given to kids when they were in basic, which blows my mind because what's the purpose of basic training? It's to simulate, it's to put as much stress as we legally can on you to make sure you're not going to break when it gets really bad and you can't take a break. But gave them stress cards. While I was in Korea, we had a new guy show up and somebody had forgotten to take his stress card away from him after he'd gotten out of basic. And he had his brand new platoon sergeant going up one side and down the other because he'd done something stupid. And the kid's like, "You can't talk to me like that, Sergeant." I'm sorry, what? I have a
Yeah.
stress card. And he pulled it out of his pocket and held it up. That kid wound up digging holes for, I think, an entire weekend. Like it was a long weekend. He was outside in the sun digging holes around the armory and filling them back in. So that didn't go well. But like that's kind of what we were dealing with back then was it was the don't ask, don't tell era. So we had guys dealing with that. It was these kids who were just being told, hey, you can pull a stress card whenever things get too tough. Like all of that and just the soup that was the Army trying to figure out how to be a kinder, gentler Army, but still be mission effective. And then
We're still trying to figure that out. Don't worry. It's been going on for 30 years, 40 years, 50 years. I think it's been going on for every soldier. Like it's the mindset of soldiers of any sorts, sailors, airmen, doesn't matter,
yeah,
what branch it is, but it's the if you don't have a direct enemy to fight, or at least plan to fight,
yeah,
if you're not actively engaged in it, is the enemy within is the worst enemy there is. And that's where you're like trying to justify service, trying to, you know, I mean, I was in the airborne infantry from 03 to 08. And if you're in the infantry during that, the 2 years before that, from 01 to 08, it was the Wild West in Afghanistan and Iraq. It was, I mean,
yeah,
I deployed 3 times in 36 months, and yeah, 2 years of that was actually deployed,
yeah,
but it was a crazy, crazy thing. And then there's people that are like wanting to go,
yeah,
and I think that enemy of like, why is that unit, we were deployed 5 months, home for 6, deployed for 6 months, home for 3 weeks, and deployed for a year, and they're
wow,
like, why we haven't gone yet, and
yep,
kind of, and I explain to people all the time, and, both of us being infantry can probably relate to this, is you take high school sports. It's a great example. It's the best analogy I've ever come up with of the mental struggle, but also the mental readiness. It kind of clashes there. In fact, varsity football is just an easy analogy where you have
yeah,
2-a-days, right? And you come to
yeah,
school early, you're doing for 2 weeks, two-a-days workouts, right? That's like JRTC, NTC, like you just devote time away from everything else to prep. And then you have like your daily training. So your morning, during school practice, you have your after school practice, you have your weight training, then you have your football training, and so on, so on, so on. I was like, being in the infantry is the equivalent of doing that. But
yeah,
Friday night lights may never come.
yeah,
Would you still do it? Would you go through all of that hell in the Texas? I'm from Texas here, down here, where it's 100. I think we had 68 days in a row of over 100. Would you do that? They had to cancel schools, after school activities, in August here because it was 110
Yeah.
degrees. Like we can't do band practice in 110. Like you'll burn yourself. It was awful,
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah.
And
Fry your
like,
lips on them too.
would you literally go through this and like, you know what? We're not Friday never happens. You're gonna go through your entire high school career of doing this and never have a game where we spend $80 million on a stadium, you know. And I think and people kind of grasp that, like, well, good God, no. I'm like, well, that's what life in the infantry or the army or any branch is. The Navy's a little different because they're always out in the water doing their thing, but
Yeah.
you know, but is what is your mindset? Where's your brain? Where's your like
Yeah.
your mental health of am I really okay with that? You know, because I limp now. My knees hurt. My back hurts. I got migraines or whatever it is. You know, broke my arm my sophomore year. You know, had to have an ACL surgery my junior year. All these things, and we never got to play. Like this is some BS. You know, and
Yeah.
or like in your case, to no fault of your own, there just weren't any games to play. You know, it was like we could play one. Yeah, I joined because of 9/11. I jumped out of college to my
Mhm.
parents' delight, and you know, and punted everything and left, and loved every minute of it. And then decided somewhere along the way, like I'm really good at this, and I stayed in for a full 20 years. And my ex-wife learned how to read the pay chart and said, "Oh, you should be an officer." Oh crap, you know. So, so I did 10 years of each, right? But
Mhm.
I think there's definitely a while they're in and they're in the 20 years of Afghanistan and everything else of people just kind of like, well, I want my turn. And
Yep.
then, but you have no control of that. Like there's a small thing now. I mean, we're all digital now and you get these assignments that come down like, hey, you can deploy, you can volunteer. One person can go and they're going to like South Africa tomorrow. And you're like,
Yeah.
I'll go to South Africa. Heck yeah. You know, I'm single, no kids, but, you didn't have the opportunity in 94 to 98, but it's an interesting thing to discuss because I think that a lot of people now are the amount of people that in the past 2 years and then going forward that are going to deal with that same struggle, you know,
Oh yeah.
because the war on terror has officially ended. They got rid of um the National Defense Medal. You don't get that
Oh,
anymore. So that turned off, I think last year, 22.
wow.
Or it's a couple months after they pulled out of Afghanistan, but they said, hey, it's officially no longer in a period of war. So yeah, soldiers are joining. I mean, it was the craziest thing. So my unit, 325 out of Bragg,
Mm.
um, or now it's I think Fort Liberty. Um, all the name changes, but
Yeah.
they if you joined from basic training and got assigned to our unit and went to Afghanistan, you'd have the Army Service Ribbon, National
Mhm.
Defense, Global War on Terror Service Medal, and you get the Afghanistan Campaign Medal when you got there. You get a NATO medal because it's a NATO mission, and
Yeah.
then if you got a deployment medal, an AAM or ARCOM, you know, so you come back with 6 medals, you
Yeah.
know, and you could be in
Wow.
the Army for less than a year, and which is crazy. You know, your generation
Mhm.
is like, I would have taken a pack of Skittles, you know, if I could put it away. Because like it was just a different time. And you go further back to like World War II, where you know guys jumping in Normandy are like, we did get a pack of Skittles. That's all we got,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
But that's what we're supposed to do. Different mindset, but I think soldiers now come in and all that's been turned off, and they have
Mhm.
a new. I think it was an Inherent Resolve is the new name, but um, so you get that one, but it's not that medals are all that
No.
important, but they still it helps with a mental,
It
you
motivates.
know.
It can motivate
Yeah,
people. Yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
it's good.
It's interesting what people will do for medals. Um, I don't know where I was going other than yeah, like when I was in, we had national, we got the we got the two to start with, and then I got I think I had four by the time I was done.
Yeah,
I tried to give myself an RCOM for a year of working for Sergeant Delaney, but Master Sergeant Edwards wasn't okay with that. So I was in Army Achievement Medal. It was, um, and what else? Yeah, no, that was it. So you got your two, got your Army Achievement Medal. I got one other one. I had 4 or 5. I'd have to go look. I think I got one for being in Korea.
So you went for overseas for 1 year in
Yeah,
Korea,
yeah,
and
overseas service. Yep.
you get the Korea service ribbon. I think with those two.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
No,
So
it's you hear a crazy. I'm like a walking anomaly. And if you've been to Korea, you're gonna freak out when you hear this. So 20 years in the Army, right?
mhm.
10 years of that technically as infantry, 5 years active infantry, 4 years I was a recruiter, and then a little gap for OCS. But I 20 years total, have 4 combat deployments, right? I've never stepped foot at JRTC. I've never stepped foot at NTC, and I've never been to Korea.
Wow, that you are like
Like people now are like, how the crap did you miss all
walking
3 of
range.
those? Or the
I
whatever.
had,
But
we did NTC. I got NTC and I got Korea.
yeah.
And I spent a year living outside of Fort Greely in Alaska. I don't know if it's still Fort Greely or not. Delta Junction,
Mm.
which is where Northern Warfare Training Center is.
Oh yeah.
Didn't ever get to go back there, and I'm glad. I joined the army to get out of Alaskan winters. Um, but that's the closest I've been. I never did JRTC. Um, just did NTC in California. But yeah, no. So like I was in not even 4 years, and I got 2 out of 3.
Yeah.
How did
It's
you
crazy.
go 20 and get nothing?
My 4 years in the Pentagon, it was so funny. I see all these older, I won't say old, that some of them might listen to this, and that's hurts my feelings, Travis. But you know, but they've got 30 years in the Army, and they've like, I've got 7 NTC rotations. And I'm like, nah, I don't know how I mean, one, airborne units don't go to NTC typically, because it's us jumping in the desert and it gets airborne versus tanks. We have a very low percentage success rate, so most of the airborne units go to JRTC.
Mhm.
And so when I joined, the unit went to JRTC before the invasion of Iraq, and they didn't go back. That was in late 2002,
Mhm.
and I joined in April of 3, and officially left in July, obviously for basic. But they that unit did not go back to JRTC until 2010. 7 years. They were deployed so much. Like at one point, I think 325 was, or First Battalion at least, was in a 10-year window the most deployed unit in the Army.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So because they deployed to on the invasion. Then when I got there, went to Afghanistan, Iraq. It took a year off. I went to recruiting, and then while I was there, they deployed back to Afghanistan for a few months. Came home, went back to Iraq, or somewhere there was the Haiti earthquake. So they're the unit that went to Haiti the next day and did that. So that counts. They were there for like 45 days. Then they came back and they went back to Iraq as they were tearing down. And my buddy, was so funny, 9 years, right? Spent 9 years in one platoon.
That's a long time.
Went from E3 to E7, covered. I mean, he was a squad leader for everything. I remember calling him like, dude, you might want to diversify your portfolio.
Just a little bit.
A little bit. So he knocked out all the schools that you can possibly get, and has a very successful career now. If he hears this, he'll know exactly who he is, but he's still actively engaged. I won't drop him, but it's been a lot of fun, Josh. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. I would love to do another podcast another time, because you got some stuff here in these notes that we didn't get to. The what do they call the NSFW, not safe for work stories. There's a lot of those, and but definitely we have to make that happen. It'd be a lot of fun. But I do appreciate taking the time to share your experience, and from one 20-year vet to a lot of combat. We're all vets, man. If you raise your hand and make that commitment to do it, you get to carry that title. And we don't pick the war, we don't pick the era, we don't pick who deploys and who doesn't. It's the only thing that matters is I was willing to, if it came about. And so I'll tell you that. And I've got a metal neck. I've been on profile too, so don't ever feel shame for that either. But it's a it's funny thing you talk about the dragon. So according to my basic training certificate, I did bayonet training. That is not true. I had 106.2 fever and pneumonia, and I was in the hospital for 2 days. So I've never used a bayonet in my entire life. So I was like, yes, somebody else, but which is probably, if we're using bayonets, things have gone really bad. It's really bad. So,
and I'll tell you with the training that, well, at least with the training I got in '94, if we were using bayonets, it was not, that training was not going to help you.
Yeah, it's all downhill. So we'll make another time to do a round 2 for sure. And what I'd really love to do is, if in the mighty world of Facebook and other social medias, is to see who we can track down, and have them as a co guest on here. And because getting two viewpoints is always fun, because you get one person that's like, oh, that's this, he said this. No, I was there. No, we were both there. And it's this, that nothing says veteran story than that right there. So it'd be a great time. But we'll have to come back and do it again.